Welcome to the Armstrong and Getty Show. I wish we had somebody really smart to deal with this subject, who had taken all this information and assimilated it, but I've done the best I can.
All right.
I've got like 8 different versions of the same story. Census news that came out yesterday, the incredible growth in non-white children in this country over the last 10 years.
You know my theory. Hispanic people learned about sexual intercourse.
Right. Well, that must be it, because there's no mention in any of these articles. I haven't come across the word illegal immigration anywhere.
Wow. Stunning.
Lots of talk about immigration, but no mention of illegal immigration.
Wow.
Which is absolutely incredible.
Wow.
I mean, and whether or not it's a good idea to have giant segments of your country start to speak a different language, whether or not that's a good idea. It's funny that if you put it to because we've seen the poll numbers, and if you made that a poll question, it'd be like 80-90% of Americans have a problem with that.
Right. Yeah.
But the media doesn't address it at all. So you got almost everybody in America realizes it's a problem.
Right.
But the media doesn't even bring it up as a side note in a 10-page story in the Washington Post.
Rolling over and showing your belly to anyone or anything that comes off as an underdog is seen as being enlightened. If you somehow resist the poor downtrodden Mexican people who are flooding across the border, you're unenlightened, you're a racist, you're a bigot, and they're not going to be that.
More than half of the United States' 100 largest cities relied on Hispanics and Asians, mostly Hispanics, to grow and would have shrunk without them over the last decade. That is a problem we have in this country.
Yeah, that's
We're
wild.
the 3rd biggest country in the world, and our population would be shrinking if we didn't allow all this legal and illegal immigration, because none of us are having kids, or not enough of them.
Stunning. We're Japan. Oh, no.
We are Japan.
We're Italy.
So what, So on that end of it, according to recent census data, Hispanics accounted for the population growth in Philadelphia, Phoenix, Indianapolis, Omaha, and Atlanta. Without the influx from these groups, the cities would have shrunk.
Well, that's not that terrible a fate. I mean,
to have the population go down?
To have some cities, shrink a little, others grow some.
It's not working that way, though. It's not working that way. The population as a whole would be shrinking if you took those
of the country.
Yes, of the entire country.
Stunning.
Absolutely. It's stunning. It is stunning. So you can be...
I thought we were at replacement. Replacement
with all the people that are coming in, we are. Because Hispanics have lots of kids.
Yeah.
With all the people that are coming in. But if you just left it to white and black America, we would be a shrinking nation.
What are Asians? Chop sake to you? Chop suey?
Okay, Asians.
All right.
So you've got that angle of the story, which I think is pretty darn interesting. We don't want to have kids for whatever reason, and we've talked about this before, and nobody in Europe's having kids. They're shrinking. They're going to disappear. So you got that. Then you got the whole childhood angle. The number of non-Hispanic whites fell in 46 states and 86 of the 100 largest metropolitan areas.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
In 10 states...
As a percentage or as a raw number?
As a percentage.
Okay.
In 10 states, white children are now a minority among their peers, including 6 that changed between 2000 and 2010. Others will follow soon. In 23 states, minorities make up more than 40% of the child population. The number of black and Indian children declined as well.
Casino Indians? Or convenience store Indians?
Without Hispanics, America's under-18 population would have declined between 2000 and 2010. If you took out Hispanics, the number of kids in this country would have declined. And in places that did see an increase, Hispanics accounted for almost all of the growth. In places like Texas and much of the South and West. Yes. Again, they don't mention why it would happen to be that the Hispanic population grew so much in the South and the West over the last 10 years.
They like to play golf. Everybody knows that.
Why would you leave that out?
Telling you, it's like a religion. The underdogma thing.
So you got
the I'm enlightened idea.
So there's a lot of different angles of this to me that are really, really interesting. At the point that in a couple of years, white kids will be one of the minorities. It'll be less than 50%. At that point, do you stop talking about the need to help out minorities and when everybody's a minority? Does that go away?
I wish, but it won't.
I wanted to read from You find this piece. It's an opinion piece because I know this will get get you all wound up. This is from the New York Times. In 1970, when I was 3, there were 170 million non-Hispanic white Americans, and they represented 83% of the America's population. Today, there are 197 million non-Hispanic whites in this country, and they represent 64% of America's population. If current trends continue at the same pace, and if my life isn't cut short by overconsumption of oysters or cigars, I will live to see the 2050 census measure an even more wonderfully diverse America, where my own demographic subgroup has become a minority. What is it with the enthusiasm that some people have for their... Well, only whites.
Right.
Only whites have this.
Right.
If you're Hispanic, you want more of you. If you're black, you want more of you. If you're Asian, you want more of you. But if you're white, you're supposed to, if you're an intellectual, want less of you.
Right.
Why? That makes no sense.
Because he who has power is evil. He who has wealth is evil. They who are downtrodden are noble, by definition, always.
But if you're white and you...
To the point of murderers should not be judged because they've had a tough life because they're a minority.
If you're brown and you want it browner, that's normal. If you're black and you want it blacker, that's normal. If you're Asian, whatever that is, and you want it more Asian-y, that's normal. Right. If you're white and you want it whiter, you are not only wrong, but you are an evil person.
Right.
I mean, you need to be watched, maybe jailed.
You'll be run out of your career
because
certainly.
of the attitude that you have.
Right.
Now, does that make any sense to anybody? And how long will that make
huge
sense?
Chunk of the population. Makes perfect sense.
But how long will it continue to make sense as these numbers start to get flipped around?
Like I told you earlier, as long as you could demonstrate that whites have a disproportionate, wealth, or on the average earn 3% more, or are taller, or I don't know, have nicer watches, or as long as there is any measure by which they can make any group, it happens to be white people in this country, but if they can make you look somehow better off, you are, by definition, an evildoer. He who has is evil. It's the old class warfare thing. It's the underdogma thing, and it's just... It's so irrational and so popular, especially among our so-called intellectual classes.
So I wouldn't mind hearing you comment on that, if you have a comment on that. The argument of why that's automatically a good thing. I mean, you've got to just say that's automatically a good thing. Any argument against that, you're clearly a racist. And then the other end of it is, if you didn't have all this illegal immigration and immigration in general, we would be in serious trouble. Serious trouble in this country. How are you going to force people? How are you going to force white people to have more kids?
Erg.
I mean, you talk about the government being in trouble now. It's all dependent upon the growing population. You take away the growth of the population, there's no chance for Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
If I was president, you know what I'd institute? Intentionally ineffective birth contrerg. I'd get to the condom makers, and there'd be holes plenty big enough for sperm.
You'd have to outlaw abortion.
There'd be, erg. Although, okay, that's very dark. Very dark. You had to bring up the A word, didn't you?
True.
Thank you, Michael. I had a funny riff going, and it was about to get funnier.
So how about...
And you had to perform an abortion of my gag. Late term.
So everybody roots for their own race except for white people, or at least out loud. You can't if you're white. Does anybody understand any of this or what it means? 1-866-331-TALK. You're listening to the Armstrong and Getty Show. It is the Armstrong and Getty Show. I'm Jack Armstrong. He's Joe Getty. If you didn't have so many Hispanics in America, we wouldn't have anybody under the age of 18 for the most part. And what percentage of Hispanics in America are illegal or came here illegal originally? I don't know that. But, the guess has been 12 to 20 million illegals for quite a while now.
We didn't cross the border crossed us.
And I'm just talking about the census data that came out yesterday and everybody's interpretation of it, from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, whatever. And it's talking about how practically every city in America's population would have decreased if it weren't for influx of Hispanics.
It's wild.
And
I didn't realize we were at that point societally.
Minority growth explains between 50 and 100% of the growth in a state's population, typically, in most states in America.
Wow.
Half to all of the growth is because of minority growth. And the number one minority that's growing is Hispanics. for all the reasons that I think we know. I was reading from this piece in the New York Times, this particular person's vision of it. If the current trend continues at the same pace, and if my life isn't cut short by overconsumption of oysters and cigars,
so cute.
I like that jaunty aside. I will live to see the 2050 census measure an even more wonderfully diverse America where my own demographic subgroup has become a minority.
See, that's how you know he's enlightened. Because he's cool with being the underdog.
He's white.
That would be great.
He's white.
That would be better.
Right. It'd be better. You're white, and you're supposed to root for being less influential.
Right.
If you're Hispanic or black or Asian, you get to root for being more influential.
Right.
My question is, at what point does that change? At what point Sam is going to be a minority in this country as a white kid?
Mm-hmm.
He won't even be the biggest minority, I'm sure, by the time he's a high schooler. Hispanic will be the biggest minority for kids under 18, and Sam will be in second place, my guess would be. So then at that point, do you get to start rooting for yourself? Because it seems like you get to root for yourself as long as you're the small, not the biggest group.
Can you have a white students association?
Surely you could at that point.
A white club.
And then could you not have a Hispanics club? That's unfair. You already have everything. Prom queen and the prom king and queen are always Hispanic. The teacher's Hispanic. The principal's Hispanic. You can't have a Hispanic club.
Right.
We have to have a white club. This is also from this guy's piece in the New York Times.
By the way, may I interject? I hate the idea of pitting ethnicities against each other, folks. Do you understand you're being manipulated by politicians who are just trying to grow their power base? They're trying to keep you together like a herd of sheep. Seriously. The whole, they're your ethnic brother thing. Please.
Well, it works.
It does work.
This is the sentence that I think is incredibly stupid from this guy in the New York Times. The world is a big, diverse place, and America will be better able to lead that world if our country is also big and diverse.
Oh, whatever.
The world is big and diverse, but the individual countries are not. Have you ever noticed that? You go to China, it's all Chinese. China's the big rival for the superpower, right? They're all Chinese.
Well, they have minorities that they treat like dirt.
Tiny minorities they treat like dirt.
Yeah.
But by the vast majority, what's the percentage? It's like 88% are Chinese.
God, that's the perfect example of feel-good non-logic.
That's just a lie.
Because the world is big and diverse, America will do better if it's diverse. Really?
Individual countries are not that diverse. They're usually black or white or Asian or wherever they are. Almost everybody and everybody in charge is of that group.
Yeah. Some are trying. Well, Europe has tried to go the other way, by the way, and they're backtracking as fast as they can. But see, if it's feel-good illogic, you never look at examples, historical or current.
How diverse is Mexico? It's very Hispanic.
Yeah, it's overwhelmingly Hispanic.
They're not diverse enough. I think you're down with Mexico. They're not diverse. I don't get that. The world's a big, diverse place. No, the world is. Countries are not.
Right.
That's just wrong. I don't know.
And I'm not anti.
No, I don't care about skin color. Makes no difference to me whatsoever.
It's just a question of being just wildly enthusiastic about it and trying to promote it at the cost of national sovereignty and national security and protecting the borders and the rest of it.
Language thing bothers me. Everybody needs to speak English.
Yes, speak English.
And then the voting by skin color is just weird. I don't get it.
If you could speak English, that would be muy bueno.